Welcome to Eat to Treat. We are a nonprofit and we aim to end health disparities. I'm Dr. Amaris Williams. I have a PhD in nutrition and I'm an avid foodie and I cook. And we do live cook along cooking demonstrations every first and third Saturday of every month right here at 3 p.m. Eastern. And the first Saturday is diabetes friendly recipes, and the third Saturday is hypertension friendly recipes, is what we're doing today. Today we're making a West African groundnut stew. This is something that I served at a dinner party I had a few months back, and everyone really liked it. It's really easy to make, it reheats well, and it's delicious. So let's get started. Okay, the vegetables in this are very interchangeable. You can make whatever you want as far as the vegetables. I did carrots and parsnips, and that's because these vegetables have a decent amount of sugar in them, which means that they will brown when we cook them over high heat. And as I've said before on this channel, color is flavor. So getting getting a little bit of color on your vegetables will add a kind of caramelized flavor to the stew. So let's get started. The carrots you don't have to peel, but the parsnips you definitely want to peel. I'm gonna peel everything just to make it easier for people following along at home who decide to peel their vegetables. So go ahead and peel your carrots and parsnips. That's what we're going to start with. These are going to cook the longest because we want them to brown and because they take the longest to cook. So we're going to put them in the pot first, and then we'll add the onion and then the sweet potato. All right, so this recipe is good for a lot of reasons, but one reason is we've got a lot of vegetables, which means we've got fiber, and fiber is associated with lower blood pressure, lower blood sugar, but also blood pressure, which is what we're talking about today. And obviously, they bring that flavor to the dish. And all the vegetables I'm using today are root vegetables, with the exception of the jalapeno, which means that they're winter vegetables. So you can make this in the winter as well as making it during the summer. I mean, we have a year-round grocery store produce section now, but this is a great winter dish. It'll help warm your bones. It'll stick to you. The peanuts are a legume. They're not really a nut. They're a legume. And if you serve it with rice, then the peanut butter plus the rice, or any other grain for that matter, will be a complete protein. So grain plus legume equals complete protein. All right, so I'm just going to slice these carrots, just keeping my fingers curled under as usual. Cut them into medallions. And I'm not going to do it on the bias. Like, on the bias is where you have your knife kind of at an angle to the carrots. You can do it that way if you want, but I'm just doing it simple today. I'm not doing a good job holding it still, though. Okay, so now I'm going to turn the pot on and put some oil in it. Here's my knife, my other knife. So I've just put enough oil to cover the bottom of the pot. And I'm going to put the carrots in there now. I'm just going to slice these other 2 carrots and do the same thing to the parsnip. And the recipe calls for 3 large carrots. My carrots were not that large, so that's why I'm using 4. Use as many carrots as you like. There's nothing wrong with carrots. They're a good vegetable. And I know 2 people who eat probably more carrots than 3 average individuals combined. So they are quite delicious. And now the parsnip. Definitely peel the parsnip. If you didn't peel your carrots, remember, peel the parsnips. The peel of the parsnip is not, it's kind of tough and it doesn't taste good. So definitely want to take that off. But parsnips, as you can tell, are in the carrot family. They have a kind of carroty flavor, but it's stronger. It's like a carrot, but stronger. And you can get sweet ones, like carrots. You know, sometimes you get a sweet carrot. Sometimes they're a little more tangy. But parsnips are the same way. Alright. And parsnips can have a tough core in the middle, which makes them difficult to cut. If you get one of those parsnips, just rock your knife like this, like that, through the parsnip, and you'll get through it. Just putting more force behind your knife is dangerous and may not get you where you need to go. So just rock it. It's usually more of a problem in bigger parsnips than smaller ones. Okay, I'm going to cut this in half. Okay, now I'm going to give this a little bit of a stir. And by the way, I have this on a medium heat. You could probably do medium high, especially if you want to get a browning on your vegetables. But medium is also fine. They'll get cooked. Next up is the sweet potato. The sweet potato is another one that you don't really have to peel as long as you clean it really well, but I'm going to peel it today. Shouldn't take long, especially if you get those round, like a round sweet potato like this, where it doesn't have too many crevices. You can see where the potato kind of dips in. That's where the peeler stops making contact. So as long as your potato is pretty round, it's easy to peel. So I always go for the roundest potato I can find because it peels easily. Just like that. Get this in here. Okay. And I'm just going to dice this. And how I'm going to do that is cut a flat surface first so my potato doesn't roll around on me. And then once I've got a flat surface and my potatoes is pretty solid, I'm just going to cut the ends off and then cut medallions kind of like the carrots. My method is a little different from Chef Jim, who was on earlier. Chef Jim made edamame with sweet potatoes in a Thai curry paste, and that was delicious. So check that out if you haven't seen it. And he first cut his sweet potato into a rectangle, kind of like a prism shape. But I find that it leaves a lot of sweet potato behind. So I try to use all of it. So instead of cutting it into perfectly square dice, I'm going with the ugly semi-rounded wedges, and that works just fine. So that's the difference between a chef and a cook. I'm just a cook. Alright. Now, you can also add things like spinach or kale to this at the end. So if you do decide to add a leafy green, wait until after we put the peanut butter in, and then add your leafy greens. So I'm going to give this a little bit of a stir again. And I'm starting to get a little bit of browning on the parsnip. The carrots are not browning yet. And that's fine. We've got more to cut. Next up is the jalapeno. Oh, no. Next up is the onion. Then the jalapeno. So I've got a medium onion. I've peeled mine already. I tend to peel them for these demonstrations because sometimes when you peel an onion, you end up with a bad one. And I didn't want any surprises, so for this, I'm just going to slice it. It doesn't have to be small. Just get it so that it's not too big of a piece to put in the mouth. Alright. Same for the other half. And you'll notice that I cut through the root end of the onion and through the root and the stem end, so the root end was still intact on both halves of the onion. The root end is what holds the onion together while you're cutting it, so the layers don't separate. So that's why I did that. Alright, now the jalapeno. You can add the seeds if you want. It'll make it slightly more spicy. I don't think I'm going to add the seeds, and that's simply because we're putting a decent amount of cayenne in here when we get to the spices part of this. And it's just not necessary. The jalapeno gives it a pepper flavor, whereas the cayenne is mostly just sweet. Alright, so I'm pulling the seeds out of my jalapeno. I've cut it in half. I cut the stem off. Then I cut it in half. And now I'm pulling the seeds out. And they come out pretty easily, because they're all stuck to the pit. And now I'll just slice it up. This doesn't have to be small because we're going to cook it in a stew with liquid and stock and whatnot. So all the flavors are going to meld. So it doesn't have to be too small of pieces. Alright, so I just sliced mine. Now I'm ready to put it in the pot and give it another stir. Okay. Alright, so now that we cut up most of the vegetables, the only thing we have left is the tomatoes, but those go in with the stock. So now I'm going to mix the spices that we're going to be using. Let me get my recipe so that I know what I'm doing here. Okay, so the first is 1 teaspoon of cumin. So 1 teaspoon of cumin. And then half a teaspoon of coriander. Okay, half a teaspoon of coriander. 1/8 of a teaspoon of cardamom. And half a teaspoon of cinnamon. One-eighth of a teaspoon or a couple of pinches of cloves. Cloves are a very strong flavor, but very good. Kind of like that je ne sais quoi in a dish. 1 teaspoon of cayenne. Like I said, we're putting a decent amount of cayenne in here. So, don't need jalapeno seeds. And half a teaspoon of ginger. Now, someone let me know if I missed anything, but I don't think I did. All right. And so this is our spice mixture. It's called Durban Masala. And I adapted this spice mixture. It's a West African spice mixture, but I adapted it from a recipe in this book here, The Science of Spice, which has a very good recipe for groundnut stew. It's a little more involved than. Oh, thank you for letting me know all the spices are accounted for. That book has a great recipe for groundnut stew. It's a little more involved than the one that I've given you today, but it's delicious. Alright, so I'm going to add all these spices in there, but they're going to suck up the oil, so I'm going to add a little bit more oil first. This is olive oil that I'm using. And then, along with the spices, I'm going to put the tomato paste in. So, let's get 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, and then we're going to cook it in the oil for a couple of minutes while constantly stirring, because both the spices and the tomato paste will burn. So put them in together and let them cook while stirring. So 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. And now let's stir it in the oil. And we're just cooking it a little bit. And then we're going to add the vegetable stock. So get your vegetable stock ready. Okay. Starting to smell really good in here. Okay. And the spices, true to what I said, did suck up a lot of the oil. It's pretty dry in the pot now. But we're going to add the vegetable stock and it should be fine. If your tomato paste and whatnot starts burning on the bottom, you can put some alcoholic beverage in there, like beer or wine, and it'll deglaze, what's called deglazing the pot, and it's just going to dissolve all the stuck-on stuff on the bottom. Because, like I said, color is flavor, and the more color you have dissolved into your stew, the better. So, all right, now let's put the stock in. All 4 quarts. I'm using a low sodium vegetable broth, and I need to shake this first. So, put the top back on. As you can see, low sodium vegetable broth. Now you can make your own. It's very easy, especially if you have like a rice cooker or a pressure cooker or a slow cooker. Just put a whole bunch of vegetables and water in there and let it go. I've seen so many different recipes for vegetable stock. It seems like anything goes. So whatever you have in your fridge and your freezer, just put in there. Make some vegetable stock. Probably will taste good. Okay. So I'm going to give this a little bit of a stir. I can smell the parsnips. They smell really good. These smell like sweet parsnips. I didn't taste them before I put them in there, but they smell like they're going to be sweet. So I'm looking forward to this stew. Okay. Tomatoes. All we're doing is chopping them up and dumping them in the stock. And I'm using 3 tomatoes because mine are kind of small. But the recipe says 2 medium tomatoes, so whatever you have, go ahead and just cut them up and put them in there. I'm just going to slice mine. Oh, I missed a sticker. Just going to slice mine and then cut them the opposite direction. And this is how you know your knife is sharp, is you can cut a ripe tomato and without mushing it to pieces. All right. This one I'm going to cut in wedges. And then I'll just cut those wedges into 8s and put it in there. All right. Last tomato, how should I cut it? Let's say I cut it. Let's do wedges for half of it and slices for half of it. Doesn't really matter. Okay, I sliced half of it. Half of it is wedges. Why not? Okay, and that's it for the cutting. We've cut everything that needs cutting. and it's in the pot. The next step is to prepare the peanut butter to go in the stew. And by prepare the peanut butter, I mean loosen it up. So I keep my peanut butter in the refrigerator so that it doesn't separate because I use this natural peanut butter. You can use any peanut butter you want, even chunky peanut butter if you want to. But if you don't want your natural peanut butter without emulsifiers in it to separate, then put it in the fridge. If it does separate, you can just use a hand mixer or a stand mixer to reincorporate it. So I just scrape everything out of the bottle, put it in the mixer bowl, mix it, and then put it back in the bottle. So that works very well. And I dropped my knife on the floor earlier. You may have heard that hit the floor. But we need a quarter cup of peanut butter. And I don't really have anything to get it out with now. Use this. Okay, so 1/4 cup of peanut butter. And then we're going to loosen the peanut butter up with some of the hot liquid from the pot. And that's just gonna make it dissolve into the stew better. So you won't end up with, just lumps of peanut butter. Okay, so I'm using my tiny bowl here. Get some liquid. And I put the peanut butter in there and stir it around. You can also use a blender for this. Just put the peanut butter and the liquid in the blender, and like one of those bullet size blenders, single serve blender. Put it in there and blitz it, and that'll work just fine as well. What I really need is a fork. And a bigger bowl. All right. So now we've softened up the peanut butter. It's nice and warm now. It's not cold. And now we can put it back in the pot. All right. Yeah, if you don't want your soup spicy, put less cayenne in there. Now, I don't know if I said this already. You can serve this with rice or any grain. Yeah, I did. I was talking about rice and legumes. So we got the peanut butter in there, which is our legume, and you can serve it with a grain, with like brown rice um or I'm sorry, brown rice. And the traditional African grain that you can serve this with is fonio, something like that. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Um, you can serve it with that, which is a whole grain that cooks easily, kind of like couscous um, in texture, but it has a different flavor. And or you can serve it with like wild rice or wheat berries or any grain that is a whole grain to give you more fiber and give you the protein that you're going for. And that's it really for the stew. If you are using spinach or kale or something like that, a leafy green, put it in now, and then bring this to the boil. And the last step is to just cook it until your vegetables are done. So the doneness that you prefer. So I'm just gonna try mine really quickly. It hasn't boiled yet, but I'm gonna see what stage my vegetables are at. So let me just get some vegetables. Oh no, they're not done. So I'd say probably about 5 to 8 minutes more of simmering. Once this boils, let it simmer for 5 to 8 minutes, and then the soup will be done. But the flavor is good. As always, adjust the seasonings at the end. You might add a little salt and pepper. You might decide that it's flavorful enough without it. Excuse me. The low sodium vegetable broth uh, does have sodium in it, so watch out for that. Let's change angles here. Okay, so we've made a groundnut stew, or we're making a groundnut stew. It will be done soon, and thank you for joining. So we made a hypertension friendly meal that everyone can enjoy. It's very flavorful and spicy, so you can adjust that to your liking. And thanks for joining. I'll see you next time. See ya.